Thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming here today. Most of you know me. I'm Constanza Mackrey. I'm a social communication specialist. And today I want to give you a discussion about how to communicate effectively science. I think it's important because as you researchers or scientists, it's important how you communicate your research. And I consider there is like two worlds, that you have the public and then you have the scientists or the agronomists, now that we are in the Department of Agronomy. And they seem like two different worlds. And you are like the bridge that connects those two worlds, because as communicating, you like facilitate those words to the people. So let's start. As I mentioned before, communication is central to science to showcase your research. So communication is a tool that you can use, and you have many ways to use it to communicate better. So effective communication, like the context of right now, is that because of the social media and the amount of information that are on internet, we have to find new strategies to convey our message and to try to get to the audience in a better way and in a more effective way. Because as I mentioned, you have a lot of information today, and you have to be really strategic how to catch the attention and how to connect with your audience. So here I give you this phrase that I took from Alan Alda, who he was an actor, but then he started more into the communication in science, and he has a very nice book that I recommend. That the name is, I don't remember, but I will give it to you. But he says something very interesting, because you can communicate, but communication does not take place because you tell somebody something. It takes place when you observe them closely and track their ability to follow you. So this meaning is like, imagine that I'm talking, and if I put my words into a very technical way, you probably won't understand what I am saying, or you are not following my message, and that is not communicating effectively. So the main point of this is that when you are explaining your research, you have to be able to the other person to understand what you are saying. So the importance of that is to take into account who are you talking to and who is on the other side. And here is what I mentioned at the beginning, like being a communicator is being a bridge between you and your knowledge and the other person. Like you, through communication, are trying to give the message in a more simpler way so they can understand you. And here is something that I found just 2 minutes ago, but I think I consider very interesting, because scientists, and you can say same as agronomy, you have your own world and you know what you're meaning and everything, but on the other side, maybe the other people, the public, don't understand you. But this is like, communication is feedback, like I talk to you and you talk to me. So that's why I like this message, because it's not always on the fault of the scientists or the research. It's also the people trying to understand you and you understand them. So it's like a two-world contact. So I will drink water because I think I'm talking too fast. But if you have some questions or if you want to jump in, please do it. So today I want to show you, after this introduction, give you two ways, like two platforms to communicate effectively, but there is many ways and there is many channels to do that. But today I will focus on social media and oral presentations, that you are the main points that you are using nowadays. Before I continue, I will say that. So the things that I will mention now are applicable, like you can do it in the both ways. Every time you are communicating something, you have to take into account the next steps that I will mention. So first, this is like the basics of everything. You have to know your audience. Like, imagine that I'm giving this talk to kindergartens. They were looking like me like, this is so boring, or what is she talking about? Like, they won't understand me. So it's important to identify your audience and to take into account what knowledge do they have and how I will be more successful if I connect with them, like questions, or try to be more enthusiastic about it. And you can say that you can communicate your research in different ways, like in different in different ways to communicate. Like you can say like be very formal or very informal, or you can try with questions or something that will catch the attention of your public. But for that, first you have to be very clear who is your audience. Second of all is like, okay, you know now that, for example, I will give you an example, your audience is students. You can then characterize them and try to put like a name, a person on that. Like if I'm talking to students, they probably will be between 20 and 25 years old, just to put you an age. They are, for example, here in Manhattan, Kansas. They like agronomy, they like science, they like research. For example, that you know that they are in the third, doing a master's. You kind of know which knowledge do they have. And that are these topics are helping me, this information are helping me to characterize my audience, and I can be more focused and try to be more specified on how I will communicate to them. I'm very clear. Do you understand what I mean? If you have questions, please jump in. So this is very important because it will help me not to imagine my audience. So now I know I'm talking to, let's say, Sean, that he has 25 years old, he's studying agronomy. I'm putting like a name on in my mind. So that will be more a personalized message, and that will be more helpful when I'm talking to, because it's like I'm not talking to a amount of people, I'm just talking to these people, you know? Third point is to define the language and tone of voice. This is like just reading the context. If I'm talking here, I will be kind of between formal and informal because we know each other and we are a small group. But then if you are going to the ASA, you know that is more formal. And then if you are going to an event that is downtown and there is the people of Manhattan, maybe it's more informal because you want to be more friendly and all of that. So that will define how we'll connect with them and how we'll communicate to them. And finally, once we know that, we can define our platform or our medium to communicate with them. So, for example, that you want to do a post and you want to talk to farmers, you know that your audience is farmers. So then you will think about how you can to translate your research into a for more technical words to more informal words, so the farmers will know you. Sorry, I'm cutting without there. But yeah, so is that just about that if you want to communicate through social media or through paper, you have to take into account who is the 3 steps below before I mentioned.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For example, we are students and we don't have a target audience in our social media. So for me, super challenging to choose the way or the tone that I'm gonna use for a tweet, let's say.
Yeah.
What is recommended in that case when we don't have like a target audience or like general?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think in the other way, like you always have a target audience. Because imagine that when you are communicating something, you are asking like, why do you want to communicate that and to whom? So imagine that you want to talk to about your research. Before you tweet something or you post something, you ask, okay, why I'm communicating this? Imagine that your reply is like, because I want to visualize my research to other people. But who is the other people? And then it's important more to scientists or farmers, because it's a tool that will improve the yield of farmers, let's say like that. So if I'm talking to, when you have to do your questions when you're doing that, and when more doing it, you will have more exercise and practice to focus on that. So if you imagine that in your case, you decided to talk to farmers, then you have your target audience. Mm-hmm. Because one thing, and that's not communicating strategically, is to post just for post, just to, I don't know, today when I went to the office, I will take me a picture on the computer and send it. And that kind of content won't be successful because you are not having a why on that. I'm being clear. Like, it's important to think, why do you want to communicate that, and which is the focus on that. And when you're asking that question, you will realize who you are talking to, and you will create your target audience. Because imagine that, for example, most of you are kind of finishing, or you want to start looking for jobs, and you want to highlight your job, like, hey, I'm a very good person on this. And your target audience is recruiters or another agronomist. So your language will be more high technical and more to trying to showcase all the knowledge that I know of this topic. So now you know who is your audience. Yeah. So it depends on, first of all, of your why. Yeah. Like, starting why you want to communicate this, it will lead you to identify your audience. Okay, this is a strategy to communicate your messages. That is storytelling. It's a marketing technical, and it's successful because first, people remember when events are organized. So, for example, you are start talking about your project, you can say like, okay, so at the beginning of the season, we went there, we analyzed the soil, we took samples, then we decided to go and do some planting, and then do the measurement. And this is like kind of a storytelling, like everything has a beginning, and then like kind of a problem in the middle, or yeah, and then the final results. So you try to organize your project like a story, and that will help a lot. And you also, if you are imagining that you're in a social media account, you can tell them like, hey, last week we do, and then you tell something like a gossip, or like a short story when your father asks you or your mother asks you, hey, how was your day? And you tell them like a short story. So no, today I went to the school, I have this class, and that you're telling a story there. Second, is successful because people remember when they relate facts to their knowledge. So this is like, for example, that let's say that your audience are kids or regular people, like they are not into research or agronomy, and you want to explain something very complex and difficult to understand. So if you have the ability to relate that to a regular situation in daily life, that will be helpful, because it's like, if you have an example for this, will help me, but we can create one together. Like, I don't know, think about something that is kind of complicated about if someone wants to share something about your research, we can try to find
evaporation. In my case, I did that first thing.
A what?
Evaporation process.
Okay, that would be nice. It's like, for example, you can say like, when you go to shower and you close your door and it's full of steams, well, that air is like evaporation, and you can explain into that and a regular situation, and you all imagine you in the shower with the and that helps people to connect. She's talking about that, or when this happened in my daily life, she's studying this. And that will help you to imagine better, and people will remember more because you put me an image in my daily life. Okay. And then, well, if we are able, sometimes when you're doing formal, it's kind of complicated to convey emotions, but if you try to generate emotions, that will be very helpful as well. Like, for example, you can say that, no, I was trying to do this, but I feel so frustrated because imagine that you are studying 5 years ago, like 5 years, and you have no results. And then people can understand your frustration because 5 years is studying something is a lot of time. And then if you don't have results, they feel the frustration as you. And here there is some how to tell a story. And this is like a formula of doing this. So first, in everything, you have an introduction. You can like put the situation of your research. Like, okay, we are researching this because there is no enough research about it, or we have to deep into more of this. Second, the note that is like in the middle of the story, explain how do you think of resolving that. If you are doing a question like, hey, yeah, one day on the office, I wonder what will happen with evaporation. and then I start thinking about it, and we realize that we need more research about it. So then, and you post through the introduction to the note. And finally, the outcome, that this is like, and finally we can resolve the question that we do at the beginning, and we have the answer for that. And then you can do like a circle and try to close the question of the introduction with the outcome. And here I will show you short examples of this that you can say, or it's like maybe it's just there and you are not seeing it. So for example, the audience in this case is scientists and professionals. We characterize them as between 40 and 60 years old. And this is like you give an imagine of the person who are talking to. They are from the Midwest. They like agronomy. They read papers, so it's more technical. They use Twitter as a social media. So for that, if I want to talk to them, I will do it in a more formal way. And for example, I can share my research through a paper, but try to tell it like, no, I not as a structure, just saying, okay, I did research and I write this paper about this and that, and tell something like that. And then, for example, in this introduction is a question, like how we can intensify our current mice-based cropping systems. So that's the problem I'm giving you, or the question that I'm making. And then you can say, so to answer that question, I went to the field, did different experiments combined with crop modeling. And then the outcome is like, we realized that this allows us to identify potential and everything that says there, but you can do like a circle of this. And this is a good practice you can do it on your experiment. And while more you talk about your experiment, you will have more tools to say it in a different ways, and to try to not be like repeatedly saying the same things every time you make a presentation. And it's a very well exercise, a very nice exercise to try to tell your project or your research, but in different ways. So like, for example, I will start with a question, and then you have to think different questions about it, and that will give you flexibility, because sometimes when you will have another job or continue doing what you do, imagine that you are someone calls you to give a presentation. You cannot do the same presentation every time. First, because you will get bored, and the people say like, oh, this man is saying the same time like last time. So the idea is to try to be more like flexible when you talk to other people, and think different ways to catch up the attention, or saying like, hey, do you know about combined crop modeling or something like that? And then you cut the attention, and then you can start talking about your project. So yeah, I have more examples, but don't worry. So I know that tomorrow we have the data storytelling presentation. Tomorrow is it?
Thursday.
And Thursday,
Yeah.
sorry, on Thursday. But this is nice because I think this, if you see that that talk, is like another tool that you can use about storytelling. So now you have the basic about how is storytelling and what it means. So imagine that you have a data, try to tell a story about data, but you have an expert talking about that on Thursday. And then when you have the data, you add the narrative. So you can say, instead of doing like, yeah, we can see here the yield and you can try to explain in a story like, yeah, when we went to the field, we realized that the soybean has more yield increase than the corn or something like that. I'm not an agronomist, so I'm sorry about that, but like give you an example, and you are not pointing only the X's and the Y's and saying like, yeah, you can see more yield there. You can tell us a small storytelling about there. So here is like the explanation about it, and then the visuals that helps you to attract your message and to engage that aspect of your explanation. So here, for example, I have the data that someone borrowed me, and then I can say like, yeah, when we went to the field, and you can start talking a little bit about that. And the visuals like maps or everything, you can say, so this data was focused on this area, and we realized and explain that. So if we put together these two things that I was talking about, like identifying your audience, characterize them, use the tone of, define the language and tone of voice, define the media, then you can apply to this. So it's not separately, it's all together. So the point of this is what to communicate in science. That was the question, and I think it's kind of related to your question. Like start asking questions about your work. Like, for example, what is your research about? What is the daily process that you maybe naturalize that and you don't realize it? But if you're saying like, yeah, I go to the office every day and start using R, processing data, but that you can tell a story between that. Like, yeah, today I process R and I realized that the data has some problems, or I miss some information to get it to improve my charts and everything. So you can do that too. And for example, what methodology you are using. Explaining methodology is a challenge because it's something so technical, and people not everybody knows how to explain stats or other methodology that you are using. And that is a very good exercise, right? If you imagine that a kid of 8 years old explaining, but how do you do that? And then you are like, okay, how do you explain what is stats or what is the methodology that you are using? So that exercise will help you to try to download all the technical words and try to connect to other people. And if you have examples, as I mentioned, for the bathroom and the steam, you can do it with other examples as well. Then what process of your research do you ensure more and why? So maybe that's question you can help it to add it to your story. So for example, when we go to a field, I love it because there you can see the plants and you can touch it and you can explain something about it. And then finally, what do you think is important to study that, and why you're researching that? Like, this is the why I was mentioning, and if you start with your why, it will be more easy to connect with people because they will understand you, the importance of your research. So yeah, so asking yourself questions that help you desnaturalize your work will be nice to get out of your small world in there and try to open your mind and putting in other people like shoes, like imagine that. And then I will give you some tips for the presentations. Less is more, like try to not to put too much text, too much figures. Try to do it as clean as possible, especially if it's so technical, because you're like overwhelming trying to understand what you're saying, but I'm seeing too much colors or too much charts or too much text. So if you have the ability to explain your research, try to be as less text as possible. and keep it simple, like try not to be so technical about it, or try to try to explain as easy as you can. Yeah, don't put much text, try to figure it out image, or like if you have charts or something that helps to your explanation, that would be really nice. If someone has something to add here, we can discuss this. Net get inspired, like look examples. Sometimes we have to do a presentation and you are falling into the same template every time. So you can look examples, save ideas. If you are going to other presentation and say like, hey, I like those post presentation, and you can write some, not copy, but try to inspire about that. Search color palette so you can change the colors, typography, find your style and feel comfortable about it. And I give you here some examples. If you don't know where to find templates in Canva, that is, you have some templates that are free and you can download it as a PowerPoint or PDF. That is very helpful because they already give you their work and you just change your text or colors or. And here, if you want to find some palette color, I go to Pinterest and I put palette color with, I don't know, orange and blue, and then they give you like different type of combinations, and that is nice to like don't repeat everything. Like if I always go with green, try to, if you like green, that's perfect, but if you want to do something different, that's a very good source of inspirations. And then for typography, you can go to Google Fonts. It's free. You can download different type of fonts if you want to do something different. So I think I'm finishing. So how do you tell the same story differently to renew audience is the main thing here. Try to talk as much as you can about your research, and you can do it by themselves, recording yourself for social media or just for you, or with a audio note. You can say what is your research about in different ways, and that will give you more familiarized technical words or more examples about it. If someone asks you like, but why do you do that, or how is it, or, and then you have already in your mind examples about it. So I think that's it. If you have any questions, or we can chat now. And so yeah, thank you. Do you want me to keep the questions to?
Yeah, just in case.
Okay.
So who is the first one? I have one question.
Yeah, sure.
So now there is a tendency to do best my poster, correct me if I'm wrong. Better poster. And I found in some conferences that people is not getting used to that. So how you feel with that, or what you know about that to recommend to use?
The best poster, you are seeing that design that is on one side.
Very low information.
Yes.
An important graph using only, I don't know, a color and maybe one image.
Yes, I think that catch you more attention than the ones that are very crowded, because most posters are like you have the title, like a small text, figure, small text, figure, and to do that I feel very overwhelming to read everything. And the idea is like just to catch your attention with a strategic message. Like, for example, you can put or your title or the main outcome that you can you realize something interesting and important to your research. And then with just one or two figures that are like the key figures of your research, I think it's more brightful, to say in some way, like they give you more attention to the other ones that are full of text. Because if you want to read more, you have the QR code to your paper, and then they can find more that. So imagine like the poster session is like, so imagine like the paper is the entire store and the poster is kind of the,
Yes.
yeah, you have the abstract and everything. Like it's something that when you, I don't know the technical word in English, sorry, but when you are going to shopping and you have the
Okay.
that you see all the clothes there, it's like that. So I have to do my, I would, if you search, someone search the word that I'm trying to say, please. But if you see that and you're interested, like, hey, I like this shirt, I want to go in there and
like
watch
a movie
more.
and it's trailer.
Sorry?
It's like a movie and you get a trailer.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
a window.
Okay. Let's say like in the window of the shop, you have the clothes there, and if you're more interested, you will come in. So the poster is kind of that. You don't have to put everything there, but just the important and the clue. But it has to say something because I don't want to jump to the other extreme and just the name and one figure. It has to be like the trailer, excellent example. And then if people want to watch the entire movie, they will scan the QR code. Yes.
Just to like continue talking about what Sophie said, I think that we had like I don't know if a discussion, but you know that we have this seminar class. And we were specifically talking about the better posters, and I think that what she's trying to say also is that it's like a little bit challenging depending on which kind of conference you're presenting your stuff. Because I really like seeing professors saying that they can, or you can like tell that they resist.
Yeah,
to
to do
this-
that.
Yeah.
But I have the answer to that. And it's like that. So and it's more profound than just that. But in society, we are changing every time. And it changed also the narratives. Before people buy the newspaper, now they are reading it online. Now, for example, it happens to us as consumers. You don't stand a 5-minute video. You're trying to have less content and more content because that's is the how we change our consume about social media and everything online. And I think it's happening here too. Like people are saying like, hey, the best poster has to have less information, more catching image, but then we are far away to the change because it's like first came the change and then came us. So what I'm trying to say is like some professors that are older or they have other habits, they are not entirely into that movement, new movement. So they will resist because it's not something they are used to it. And the thing is like nowadays with the new generations and with new students, they want to walk through the aisles of posters and try to take out messages with a view. Like if you have imagine that your poster are here and I have a big letter with the title or with the outcome of that research will catch me attention instead of small text all like crowded. And I think that's why now it's like, okay, someone is telling you try to do this, but the other professors are resisting that idea. But I think because the social changes are so much fast that we are used to that. I think it's kind of that, for my opinion.
And do you think that maybe it's better to target the audience as well in the poster? Because for the seminar, if that happened to me last year, I went with a poster that was very short and with the title, the figure, and then the score was not good. But the content was there. And they said, okay, you can use too many pictures in order to explain the methodology. Why the title is in like it was in the beginning, I don't know. Why it is in the middle, or I don't know. I feel that sometimes we have to target the audience as well as for presentation.
Yes. I think that, for example, no, I understand you. Like, for example, in the ASA that you have more professors in that way, I will be something in the middle, not try to be so different. But for example, if we are having an event, the 23rd of October about digital ag and advanced analytics, you are all invited to go there. But in that type of event that are more kind of relaxed because you don't have like to put a jacket and
Yeah.
everything and a suit, sorry, and be there. But then you can try new things there and try to take into account that kind of event to innovate on your type of project. But for the ASA, I know it's tricky because you have like an old generation of professors, very traditional, but you have new ones. And I think also that the people who are judging your posters is very personal opinion besides the technical part, because you can like it or not, and that is very. But if you have an technical response to that, like, yes, I put a big text in the middle because it caught your attention and it's more important to explain in detail the methodology. The methodology, you can say, yeah, use Bayesian, for example, and then that's it. All you have to say is that, because you're not trying to explain all the methodology of that.
And I think that's important, like, for example, thinking about like the essay meetings, stay in the middle, or even like in seminar, because like we're going to have people that is really expert in our area.
Yeah.
Looking at their poster, but we're going to have like someone from soil physics,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
someone from rock modeling also.
Yes.
looking.
Yeah.
Yes.
So-
Yes, that was you're totally correct. And when you think about that, you have experts from different areas. You try to thinking on your audience, you have to go like technical, but not so much.
Yeah.
And try to, and if the important thing is, like, for example, you want to win the poster section or the best posters, I think that if they ask you, you have to have the technical words, because if you can like purple, you can like orange, and that's very personal. But if you say like, yeah, I put this because I consider that, and you explain why you're doing that, I think it's a good point. But I'm not an expert about how people evaluate posters, but I will do that way. And yes, it's important to everybody, and what Cesar says is very clue. Like, if you are too technical, nobody will
Yeah.
understand it. And if you are like in that kind of conference, if you are too easy to understand, it's like
Yeah.
like, yeah, you have to go kind of in the middle. Like, yeah. Do you have any other questions? Yeah.
Related with social media.
Yes, I like that.
Imagine that you already define your why and characterize your audience.
Yes.
And you realize that you need to have like an Instagram.
Yes.
What about the frequency that you have to have?
The posts.
Yes.
Well, in that case, first of all, I consider that for agronomy specifically, it's more important Twitter than Instagram, because all the audience, at least the interest discussions give you in Twitter. But then the frequency depends on you. At least I will say 1 or 2 posts per week, because if not, it's like you disappear and then 1 month later you are here and then 2 months later you are here again. It's like, if you have a constancy, will help you to the visibility of you. You will give you the chance to interact with other people. You can ask questions, or even though you don't post anything, because you sometimes happens that you don't have the content, you can try to find another user that posts something interesting and do questions and try to interact with them. And then you can retweet or try to retweet that and do a quote, and you can add your point of view and like, okay, I'm giving my opinion about this, or even though it could be an agreeing with the person or giving another perspective, and then will give you like an active profile. So yeah, I think like if we try to post, but even though the amount of posts you do, it's like you give the quality of the post, because it's like we came to the beginning. Like, if I post every day with my computer drinking mate, or I don't know, drinking a coffee, it's like the content is empty. And the important thing is like, maybe you can take a picture of your computer, but with the R code, and say like, I'm analyzing this data, I'm really excited about it. I hope to have excellent results about the yield of something, or the corn, or something like that. And then you are like giving a clue of what you are studying. And that is your daily process that I mentioned in the presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. More questions? No?
I was looking at, for example, LinkedIn, that there is a girl doing an internship there.
Where?
A girl doing an internship at Cortiva, and mentioning that your example about how you can showcase in time. What she was doing, for example, every week she's posting what it's like to be a fire scientist at Cortiva Science, for example, week 27. And this week she's talking about solving physiological maturity. And there she explains all the technicalities below there, so if you want to take a look or not. But the good thing is that you will know that every week she's having
Like an update.
yeah, she's posting every week about a different topic, so it's.
That's nice.
A lot of interactions.
Yes. Yes, that's nice. That's nice because she keeps you updated and she's telling her story about her experience in person.
And also what is nice, every week topic is about what is something that is happening now, for example, soybean harvest, or in April was about, I don't know, corn planting.
Yes.
So it's updated on time as well.
That's nice. And for you agronomists, you have a schedule, and in your schedule, you know when is the planting, you know when is the harvest, you know when is the treatments, or if the plants are in R6 or in BU2, and that you can like anticipate you like, okay, next week I know that I'm going to the field, and you can think in advance what you want to show, and you prepare that. It's like you are not waking up and say, oh, I have to go to a field, and then you figure it out in the moment. Like most of you have planned when you are going, and you can start seeing like, okay, I know that I'm going to do some measurements. Maybe I can explain why I'm doing that measurements and how it's related to my project. And then you have a small post there. And then it's like you tell the story of your project into tweets or into posts. So yeah, there is like different ways to think how you can communicate and be creative about it. And another tip is like, if you know someone who is doing that, like this girl, you can follow them and see how they do it and try to inspire about them and try to do something similar, but in your style and in your way. And that's a very nice example. And another thing is like, for example, in oral presentations, you get very nervous being there. So you have to practice maybe going to the mirror every morning and talk to you and try to get familiarized with your image and talking out loud and talking to other people. So that is like more regular in your daily life, and you are not so nervous when you're talking to other people. Or imagine that one day you will have to give a talk to other farmers or the ASA or other conferences. So while more you do it, more comfortable you will feel.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you all for coming.
Uh,
Good luck in the engines. No ideas, I think.